Welcome beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. This episode is sponsored by Mainstream Reiki, offering live and online Reiki classes and a membership community to help Reiki practitioners succeed and grow in their practice. Find out more at mainstreamreiki.com. Welcome to this latest episode of Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. We've got a great show for you today. I have a wonderful guest with me. And before I introduce her, I just want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all of our listeners and our viewers on YouTube. We are very excited and grateful for you listening to the show, leaving us reviews, and sharing the show with your friends and family. We really appreciate it. My guest today is Karen Caig. She is a licensed Reiki Master Teacher with the International Center for Reiki Training. She retired from teaching college English for 30 years in order to pursue her Reiki and coaching career full-time. Several months ago, she made another huge decision and relocated from the state of Arkansas to Ecuador. Karen's business is thriving through it all, and she shares about that and her new Ecuadorian lifestyle through her blog, Karina Andina. And I just want to say, Karen, I'm really thrilled to have you on the show. I can't believe it's been this long and you haven't been on yet. So finally, I came to my senses and said, we need to talk to Karen. And so thanks for saying yes.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, we've been busy. So
yeah, just
all divine timing.
Yeah. It's funny when I was planning to get on with you to record today, I kind of went down memory lane a little bit, and we met at the same exact time that I met Kathleen, and that was online. We did that panel
Reiki
with the Reiki Masters, right?
Yeah,
isn't that the first time we met?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. That seems like ages ago. Well, it was several years ago.
Yeah, I think it was in 2018. About 5 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah. 5.5 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I guess so. Anyway, here we are again, and lots happened since then, the pandemic and everything else, and wow. So I want to dive in and get a little bit of your background. In the introduction, I talked to you, or I explained to the listeners, you were teaching for decades. And so you have had a lot of transitions in your life. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and how Reiki how you found Reiki, and maybe how Reiki has accompanied you through some of these changes. I mean, it seems like maybe a catalyst or a foundation or a guide. But if you could explain a little bit about that, I think that might be quite fascinating.
Yes, I think so, especially since your podcast is called Beyond the Reiki Gateway. It really is the gateway to a new life. And I think that for many of my students, it is the foundation for change. I think opening up to Reiki, I didn't stumble on it until I was 49 years old, but I read an article and I went, well, maybe that's a thing, because I'd always had kind of hot hands and maybe the capacity to help people. And I think that was also the root of my teaching career. Of course, I love literature and composition and writing and helping people find their voice and all of that, but the basis of my career was helping people, because I taught in a community college, and my best students were the non-traditional students, and then sometimes the little 18-year-olds who have no idea what they're doing, like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I think, isn't that all of us though? At so many points in our lives, I'm not sure what I want to do with my life now. What do I do now? And when I found Reiki, it began the process of releasing what we talk about, as you know, Andrea, in our lineage with the Holy Fire, we talk about releasing the culturally created self to find the authentic self. And that's a journey. I mean, and I guess that's the journey of everyone, Reiki or not, is trying to connect with our deepest selves and remember, I think, why are we here? What am I doing here? And so at the age of 49, I began that process. I took a Reiki 1 and 2 class, and it was embarrassing. I remember crying on the table. I thought, what on earth is going on? You know, when you have the practice part of class, and had the other students and the teacher were working on me. And I don't know what came over me. Honestly, I think it was like a release of all kinds of things. And I just could not stop crying. And I was just like, oh, I mean, ugly cry, snot flying. It was the whole thing. And it was really embarrassing. But I look back on that, it was January of 2012. And I can go back to that date, and that's where it started shifting.
And so let me see if I understand this correctly, because I've never talked to you about this before. So this is brand new to me. And I want to ask you, so you never had a Reiki session before you took the class, right? Mm-mm. Isn't that interesting? Because I have found a lot of people do that. As a matter of fact, I had never had any experience with Reiki. And then there I was learning Reiki 1, you know, very spur of the moment. But a lot of people don't have a session, and they feel really like, I need to take the class. And I just kind of wanted to point that out, because there really is no right way. You know, you don't have to have experience or even know anything really about Reiki before you take the class, right?
Exactly. And yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you stopped me on that, because I've had students ask me, like, well, should I get a session with you before I take the class? I'm like, no. If you've stumbled on the website, or you're being sort of called to this, it's time. And go ahead, and it's like, sure, you can pay me $100 and I can do an hour session on you if you want. But if you're feeling that nudge to go ahead and dive in, the water's fine. I mean, I think that people know, or on some level, maybe their higher selves, or at some gut level, they know something needs to change, something needs to shift, and you're not really sure what it is. When I took the Reiki class, it was more of a, I wonder, well, isn't that interesting? I thought,
yeah,
so maybe it's this thing with hands and energy and all of that. So I took the class, and I didn't know, at least on a conscious level, that I was ready to shift, but I was not happy. I was on antidepressants. I was totally burned out from grading essays, and I was a single mother. I was really hanging by a thread, and not really thinking about the fact that I was hanging by a thread, because when you're hanging by a thread, you're just trying to keep doing what you're doing. And Reiki, for many people, I think, is just that sort of a wake-up call, or a like, stop. Like, what are you doing? Stop. And then you start to release a little bit. And then I took the master class a year later. And that was another sort of magical thing, where I took groups of students abroad. That's how I've traveled, because as a single mom on a teacher salary, I didn't have a lot of money. But if I took groups of students abroad, as the chaperone for a college group, I got to go free. So it just so happened that 2 years before, we had planned a trip to England, Ireland, and Wales. And it ended in London 3 days before William Rand's master class with the attunement in Stonehenge. And I was just like, man, wouldn't that be awesome? Because it was going to cost the same,
right?
You know, and I was going to be in England, so it just worked out, and that took me to the next step. And then I decided, I want to teach this.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing too? Because I think for our listeners and our viewers who have learned Reiki, so many of them, I think, can relate to how things fall into place for you to take the training or the guidance to attend or whatever. But I love that story that you just happen to be, you know, in London, and then there's the class, your next step 3 days later. So And at the time, it might seem like, wow, that's
What a coincidence.
cool. Yeah, that's a coincidence. But then later, wow, don't you just look back and you're like, wow,
Hmm.
as far as how Reiki and your practice has just unfolded over the years. But wow, okay, so we kind of went off on a tangent there, I think. So what were we talking about?
No, I think you asked me what the journey has been, and what I would like to emphasize to the listeners is that if you feel drawn at all to Reiki, it then take that step and don't think. A lot of times my students are like, I don't know, am I going to start a Reiki practice? Well, I don't know why I'm here. And I tell them, you don't have to know
Mm-hmm.
what, you just have to know what your next step is. I think that's been one of the big lessons with Reiki and how it has changed my life is that you don't have to know exactly where your end destination is on the journey. You just listen for the next step. Reiki for me has been all about listening, learning to listen because I talk a lot. I'm not a good listener by nature. And so it's taught me to listen to my higher self, to listen to guidance, I didn't even know. I remember in Reiki 1 and 2 when they talked about connect with your spirit guides. I was like, what the heck is that? So God, that was not, that just wasn't part of my vocabulary. It wasn't part of, I mean, well, like you, I mean, I was a trained academician. I was not, that wasn't really my thing. But then
Right.
as I went along the journey, talk about beyond the Reiki gateway. Well, I was like, it's like what strange dimension have I landed in now? I mean, because as you're listening and you're moving and following the flow of life, I guess it you just go, wow. What did Hamlet say? There are stranger things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. It's true.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? I love the point that you made about it's really just about the next step,
Hmm.
because we, if we don't know what we don't know, and if there's so much unknowns, how could we even expect ourselves to know where we're going to go? And that 18-year-old sort of example that you gave, not knowing what they're going to do with their life. I mean, yeah, I think we were all like that. And even if, I remember back when I was that age and I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to study physics. I'm going to do, health physics in the medical field. So I had a map, I had a plan, but that all changes,
It
because
does.
as you take the one step and then the next, and then you evolve and grow and new things come into your awareness, the possibilities open up then. So, we tend to make decisions and plans based on what we know at that time. And thank goodness that changes so we can
Mhm.
choose again, change our mind. And you've
Mhm.
changed your mind a lot.
I
So,
have. Every day is
yeah.
well, I think that it's been more of a journey of coming into myself because I spent so much of my life pleasing other people I taught English because that's what my mother wanted me to do. That
Mm.
really, I, my first degree was in theater. I wanted to be an actress.
Oh.
Yeah, I wanted to move. I think I just wanted to live in New York City, And
Oh.
so I was a theater major that paid for my first 2 years of college. And then I changed to German. My bachelor's degree is in German with a minor in Spanish because I thought, well, I could work maybe at the UN. I still wanted to go to New York. And then after things were just not working out and my first failed marriage, oh, that sounds so horrible. I thought, okay, it's easier to read novels in your own language anyway. Maybe I'll just get a master's degree in English and just do what my mother always wanted me to do, and you just sort of settle.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess a lot of us do that. You have your dreams and you start on them and you go, well, this isn't working out. And so you settle. You settle
Mm.
like, okay, I could do this. I can do this and be happy. You just keep smiling. I'm so
Yes.
happy. And you keep moving through life, but then you reach a point where you go, I am not happy. And Reiki, like when I mentioned earlier, it's like a wake up call, and you go, no, I'm actually miserable.
Mm.
And I have a friend who says we all drive our own happy train. If you're miserable, then what can you do to change it? And then I think that's where the guidance starts coming in, when you start asking, I don't know, what would make me happy? I never would have dreamed I was going to be living in Ecuador.
I know.
And
I
so,
know.
and that has just been part of the journey.
Yeah. But do
And
you think that there's something to be said, though, about acquiring the ability to do Reiki that is empowering, right?
oh God,
And
yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
to me, yeah, because maybe we go through life and we're making those decisions and maybe settling or doing things, and then we're not very fulfilled. And you mentioned people pleasing, which I mean, I can totally sympathize and go there too with that. But I think one of the magical, I don't know, facets of Reiki is this empowerment, because you're literally putting something in your own hands that is new, is different. And the possibilities, I think, open up, right?
Right.
And
And
no longer is it just who you were the day before you took the training. There's something different that you can draw upon. And I think maybe that helps us get out of our own way.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That you have, well, you have a connection. You have a connection to something bigger, and you go, oh yeah. And I remember when you first start with Reiki, you go, oh yeah, I've got magic hands. And you're like, oh, I have a headache, and you still start going for the the Tylenol or something. And you go, oh wait, I forgot. Oh
Yeah.
I've got this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my heart is broken. Oh wait, I've got this. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, thank you. You know, oh my gosh, I'm an empty nester. I'm living in a house all by myself with 2 cats. I'm the crazy cat lady. Oh wait, I've got this.
Yes.
And you ask for guidance. I mean, because that's what life is just a series of challenges and opportunities
Right.
to learn something. So when you realize I got the power, you've got the power to heal yourself, to connect with something bigger. It's life changing.
Yeah. I
And it
think
comes in little increments, but it's life changing.
yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that we really are aware of it, often. And then maybe we look back and then we see the changes, the shifts along the way. And so you had that career, you were teaching in junior college, you had said, and then so what was it that happened for you to leave all of that and rely on Reiki full time?
Well, honestly, my only child that I raised, I left when I was pregnant, my marriage. And so it's just been the two of us all his life. He went to college. Honestly, that was it. I followed my child to college. That was the catalyst. I thought, okay, it's time to do my Reiki business full time. And I moved about 30 minutes away from the University of Arkansas, and I didn't bother him too much, but I just wanted to be close to him because he was like my whole world. If any empty nesters are listening, he was my entire world. And I started the Reiki business, and that was a big jump. But what made me want to take that risk was I wanted to be close to my son. So I thought, okay, I'm going to move to Northwest Arkansas, where the economy is booming and it's a little more open-minded. And I jumped in and started my business and was doing okay. And COVID hit.
Right. Where were you before that, Karen, before you moved to
In
Northwest?
Central Arkansas,
Oh, you were in
a little
Central.
tiny place called Morrilton, about an hour north of Little Rock. Yeah,
Oh.
about 6,000 people. Yeah.
Oh, I
Just
see.
tiny. Nobody. And the fact that I found a Reiki teacher in Central Arkansas, that's pretty amazing.
Yes. Yeah,
But
we're kind of everywhere.
yeah. And I started, with some encouragement from my mentor, Karen Harrison. She said, you really should apply for the licensed teacher program. And that did help, because that it made me more visible once I went through that 3 years of extra mentorship. And it's like an internship.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anything about business. That was the biggest problem.
Oh,
And it's
right.
daunting. If anybody's listening to this thinking about like, oh, change, it's just, like I knew I wanted to do Reiki. I loved helping people. I'm good at this. I can do this. But then as far as like joining the Chamber of Commerce, building a business, and I mean, all that stuff, I had no idea. So the program helped me with that and to continue healing and gaining confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about the time then that I met you around 2018. So see, it just started once, but I think that the thing is that you have to take that leap of faith. And my friends thought I was nuts. They said, "What do you mean?" Because I wasn't old enough to retire. They said, "What do you mean? You're just going to quit teaching? Like you're not old enough to get your retirement?" Like, nope. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm going to do Reiki. And I did. But I think that once you take that leap, was it Goethe who said like the entire universe conspires to help you?
Yes.
And then I got invited. I think somebody else had canceled that panel that we were on.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was one thing. I met you and Kathleen, and just things just start to move.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we went on to do some things together. We hosted some events and things like that around Karuna Reiki, which was great fun. So I got to know you a little bit more back then. But, one thing really stands out to me, Karen, and that is that you took the leap. I think a lot of people, and maybe you had this before, this tendency. I think a lot of people have the idea, have the dream, right, of what they're going to do. And then they might say, well, when I feel like I'm ready, or when I've checked off enough of these boxes on the must-do list, once I do that, then I'll take the leap. And I really want to underscore this idea that you just touched on, and that is the universe does conspire. Because here's the thing. What I've come to know is that when we make the leap, our energy shifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's as though we are calling out to the universe like, okay, I am in this. And so your whole focus shifts, not from, oh, I have to get ready to do the thing, but I'm doing the thing. And then all of a sudden you're on the hook. Yeah. And so your energy really intensifies. It gets honed in on that. And it's like I say all the time, it's like, ask a question, you get the answer. They come in pairs. And so if you're just going to prepare and go through your to-do list and sit on the couch, well, then you're going to get those kind of soft nudges as you sit on the soft couch. But once you take the leap and you're flying by the seat of your pants, everything changes that you're putting out in the universe, and the universe meets you. The universe brings you what you need. So, I'm so glad
you said that. I think that that's true. There's something, because I think it's a little bit of that fear once you've jumped. I can remember when you started really building your YouTube channel, it was during COVID, and you're like, and it was kind of like that, I'm going to do this. And wow, look at it. But there's a little bit of that fear. And I think that fear, and then when you've got the Reiki to kind of help support yourself, but it really does make you just zero in on what you're going to do. And then all those people that are saying like, are you crazy? It just sort of fades into the background. Are you crazy? What are you doing? And all the doubt and everything, when you're really focused, once you've jumped, then you have no option except to just like, okay, I'm here. And yeah, it's like a trapeze. You've let go, and then here comes the universe and catches you. And
yep.
But it's that decision, like you said, like you're really focused. When you've committed, then you're focused, and then all that other stuff falls away. All the stuff that holds you back for so long. Like I had a student this last weekend. She was retaking Karuna with me. She said for the 6th time, and she texted me last night. She said, "Okay," she said, "I contacted somebody. I'm going to teach my first class finally." But she was doing exactly that. Like, well, I just don't feel prepared enough. I need to, you do prepare, of course you do, but at some point you have to let go of the trapeze and swing and grab to the next thing.
You You're so
Glad she
right.
did.
It's so funny because actually I taught last weekend too, and I taught the master class. So I was teaching master, you were doing Karuna master. And I think we had the same conversation, with our students because I was telling them yesterday, I said, do not put off teaching until you feel like you've got it all worked out.
Because you're not.
You'll never teach. I said, when people are asking you, that's a huge clue that it's time for you to take the leap. And your first class, it's not going to be perfect. Who cares? You have to start somewhere. And so the other thing too, and I bet you've told your students this. I'm curious to know, but I tell my students too that you will learn so much more about Reiki when you become a teacher.
Absolutely. That's a big part of why I teach is that conversation and that ongoing lifelong learning. You get that from teaching others.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a metaphor for life too. I mean, you can't just stay safe on the sidelines all the time. I mean, I do have to pull back and rest sometimes. And,
Sure.
And no, I haven't always been, that hasn't been my personality to just leap because I've been afraid of a lot of things. I think the Reiki really helped me get back to like listening to myself. And all of us have that little voice or that feeling. Either it's in your gut or your heart or you just a knowing. And when you go back to following that, that's where things start to open up.
Well,
because you're on track and in the flow.
Yeah, but you mentioned too, you had your son. I mean, there's responsibility there. And so, we have to balance that too, right? I mean,
That's true.
We can't just leap off and fly away into the unknown when we have certain responsibilities and things that we have going on. So I think that that's an interesting point too, because I think that a lot of people come to Reiki a little bit later in their life. Although I have to say, students are getting younger and younger all the time, which is so exciting because I can't imagine the kind of mom I would have been if, I actually had Reiki as a mom most of the time, but I can't imagine what the world would be like if more parents had Reiki, not just moms, but dads too, because I think it changes the landscape of the household, or it has the potential to, for sure. So that is really super exciting. But, I had the luxury of, following my Reiki path early on. And not everybody has that. And they need to work at the job and do the things and all of that. But I always tell my students too, don't ever be sad that you found Reiki later because it's all perfect. It all works out perfectly. And you bring all of the experience to that moment. And so there's nothing at all less than about that.
Nope. It's really perfect timing. And when you're talking about parenting, I can remember, I think it was my son's junior year. He was struggling he's an engineer. So he was taking stuff like you. He was taking stuff like you do, like math, like not my thing. And he was really struggling through a class. And I told him, he said, I think I'm going to drop it. I said, just go. I said, stop studying. You're stressed out. Just stop. Go take the test in the morning. I said, and if you fail, you fail. And he looked at me and he said, who are you and what have you done with my mother? And I'm like, I said, I know more now, son. I said, it doesn't matter. It's not worth working yourself up because it's going to work out, So he took my advice and I think he passed it with a D, but he didn't have to go back and take the class again. But it's kind of what you said, like to your students, like, so you're not going to be perfect. And I used to be such a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I've got to do this right. People they're going to hate me. And, but sometimes just getting it done is better than nothing. Or, I told my son, so, all right, so you want to have a 4.0. It's like, just get through it.
Yep.
You'll it's going to be fine. And you know what? It is fine.
It
But
is.
it took me to get into my 50s before I realized that. And
Hmm.
my college students, sometimes the older ones would say, "Oh gosh, I wish I'd done like you and gone straight through college, and waited to have children." And I said, it's always a trade-off.
Hmm.
I said,
Yeah.
my son's like, "Come play on the floor with me, Mom." I'm like, "Here I come. I'm gonna be down there in just like 5 minutes." If you have children when you're older, yeah, you're calmer, perhaps, maybe more established. You finished your college, or you've done some things, but you know, then, then there's a trade-off for that too. I said, and now you're coming back to college when you actually have some sense, you know.
Yeah.
So when you've had some life experience, you have things to write about. My little 18-year-olds are like, "I don't know what to write my paper about." It's like, because you don't have any life. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Hello, it's Andrea. And in addition to being your host here at the podcast, I'm the founder of Mainstream Reiki, where bringing Reiki further into the mainstream is my mission. I offer quality Reiki classes of all levels to students attending live from around the world. And I've built a membership community as well to help Reiki people connect with each other through discussions, events, and Reiki practice. So if you're considering learning Reiki or you already have, I invite you to visit mainstreamreiki.com to discover your next step in your Reiki journey. Thank you. And now back to the show. And so you started your business, we had the pandemic, and then now you're in Ecuador, Karen.
well,
I
and
mean,
then yeah,
what happened there?
and then my friend said, "You couldn't stand to be 3 hours away from your son, and now you're on another continent." I'm like, I got better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But seriously, that's kind of what happened. And with the when the pandemic happened, and that was so stressful. Like, I had to think I ate everything. I gained so much weight. I was just like eating all the time. Like, use your Reiki, use your Reiki. Like, no, I'm going to eat that banana split instead. No. I was super stressed, but I was able to shift my business online. Like, and then, yeah, we were talking during that time. It's like, what do we
Mhm.
do? I don't know. It's kind of scatter and regroup. Well, let's do this. That's when you said, well, I guess I can teach through YouTube. I'm going to start developing some YouTube videos, do more with it. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll be teaching online. So once I did that, then I started getting students from all over. And
Yes.
that opened up the door to Ecuador. Jay Jackson, who's also a licensed teacher, who just moved here also. I met him at the Reiki retreat, and I told him, it's kind of a long story, but I said, I asked for guidance and I got signs. I said, I'm going to move to Ecuador. And he was the only person who didn't say, "What? Where? Is that in South America?" He said, "Tell me more." And so I told him, I said, "Well, I've always had it in the back of my mind. I'd been to the Galapagos, but with some students, but there's a place called Cotacachi up in the mountains, and I've always had that in the back of my mind since I read an article in 1993 about what a beautiful place it is." And he said, "Let's go." So we came down here last November, and he said, "Do you realize?" He just said this to me the other day. He said, "Do you realize?" He said, "You came and you saw the place." He said, "And 5 months later, you were there." I'm like, yeah, that's kind of amazing. I sold
Yeah.
almost everything I have. I was able to get out of my lease, which shocked me. I mean, I moved two cats with me. Everything just went tunk, 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 tunk. And 5 months later, I'm living in the Andes.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I saw on social media that you posted you were going to move to Ecuador. And I was like, I mean, I probably did a triple take on that. I'm like,
What?
what? What? What has happened? I look away for a minute and Karen's moving to Ecuador.
And it seemed like the most rational. I talked with my family, I talked with my son, I talked with my brother, and mainly I was concerned. I said, like, I'm going to move. I said, will you be okay if I move away? I feel that this is what I'm supposed to do. And my brother said, yeah. He said, he said, shoot. He said, if you don't like it, you can always come back. I'm like, well, that's true. And my son said, he said, this is your time, Mom. He said, go. Because he's in a relationship. He had a job. He finished college. And he said, go. It's your time. And so, and I didn't hit any walls. I mean, everything just went tung, 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 tung.
Yep. It all unfolded.
I said, why am I here? People ask,
Oh,
and I'm still not sure. I'm here to learn from, I live with the indigenous people, and I think
mm,
I'm here to learn from the indigenous people and to live closer to the land. And everything is so much slower here. So the point of that is I'm not really positive why I'm here, and that's
mm,
okay.
yeah.
But I'm supposed to be here, and I know that deep in my gut. So here I am.
Yeah.
And
Do you feel that there's something that you're supposed to accomplish, something specific you're supposed to accomplish there?
yeah,
Um,
but I'm
and do
not
you know
sure what
what
it
that
is.
is?
I think I'm supposed to be a bit of a bridge. I think there's an indigenous prophecy that the eagle and the condor will become one. And I think what that means, now I'm starting to sound, oh, this fits in with Beyond the Reiki Gateway. Now I'm going to get woo woo. But the eagle represents North America and technology and
Mm,
that. And the condor represents the heart. And that, I think what the prophecy means is that at some point there's going to be balance between this. I mean, I mean, I'm from the United States. I love my country. I don't really feel like necessarily it's my country so much anymore, but that's where I come from, and it's there. There's more infrastructure. There's more technology. There's a lot of good stuff about the United States because I'm always looking for the positive. But then what I find here is closeness to the land. It's very communal. You know, the United States, that's partly what part of our strength is that we're very individualistic and but here is super communal. And so I think that this is part of the shift that's happening in consciousness worldwide. So this is what I think I'm doing. I think that I'm bringing my background from North America and I'm learning from South America. And I think that the Reiki also will have a big part of that as far as healing and bringing people together, you know, the unity consciousness.
mm-hmm.
And also, I live right on the equator. Well, about 2 hours north of the equator. I live on the equator. And I'm feeling that in my body. I'm feeling that in like all of my physical body, my emotional, my mental, spiritual body. I feel that, oh my God, I feel balanced and centered for the first time in my life.
Mm,
And I was reading about the equator, and I thought this struck me. I went to the equator. I was actually there on the solstice, and he was talking about. He said, you know, they came to Ecuador. Ecuador, you know, means equator, because this is the one place where it's not in the jungle, it's not underwater, it's not flat, so we can have like mountain peaks, and that's how they could measure. That's math. I don't really understand, but he said he held a globe and he said, look at the equator. He said, which way does the sun go? And I said, it goes this way, you know, east to west. And he said, what a lot of people forget, and I was reading more about this, is that we tend to think of the equator as a divider. And we tend to think of like the countries north of the equator as being, I don't know how to say it, more developed, better. And the countries south of the equator as being less developed and less than in some ways. But really the equator is, we can shift and look at it as it's a meeting point between two equals. That there's value in both core values, I guess.
mm. Well, you can take
If
that
that
even
makes
a
sense.
little bit further, I think, too, because if the sun is illuminating along the equator, then, we could talk about unity of light and
Yeah, I
all
have.
kinds of things like that. I mean, that's what's coming to my mind as you talk about it.
Mhm.
Aren't we something as humans? How we label everything and everything's a hierarchy. It's so tiring, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is a different kind of place because it's definitely a third world country, but I do have internet, and I live on a Well, people say, "Can we send you a card?" I'm like, "No, I don't have an address." "What do you mean you don't have an address?" I'm like, I, I live on a dirt road and there's no name. I live on a street with no name. Yeah, like a U2 song with like cows and chickens and sheep and pigs, and but I live in this. It's just very different. But it's this mixture. I think that this is what I'm here. I'm here to process this and then maybe bring it back. Like, okay, here's a different way we can live. But I don't think I've lived here long enough to have completely integrated this lifestyle. I'm still trying to learn Quechua. My goodness, I'm still trying to practice my Spanish. But I'm learning the indigenous language as well. And yeah, so
You don't have an address. I'm still stuck on you don't have an address?
like I went to the doctor last week in the capital of the province where I live in Ibarra, and they said, "What, ¿cuál es su ubicación?" I said, "Cotacachi." I live in Cotacachi. So that's the name of the town I live in. But it's very small.
But okay. But time out, Karen. Time out. I'm planting my feet here. We have to address this. So if the doctor needed to send you test results or something like that, how would they do it? Would they through the internet?
Oh, well, yeah, I'll get like a WhatsApp message, but this is also different. So I had to have x-rays and an MRI and all this stuff, and they're over there on top of my refrigerator. So you have to like carry them around with you.
Oh.
So I went back to the doctor and I've got like, okay, here's my lung x-ray, and let's see, here's my MRI, and here's my bone density test. But the doctors are this is very bizarre also. They're really, there's not a nurse. You go in, the doctor's at the desk and you sit there, and like the cardiologist said, "What do you need from me? What do you need?" And I was like, just struggling for my Spanish. I'm like, "Pues necesito, tengo dificultades para respirar," I was like, I have trouble breathing. Yeah, but it's the altitude. So,
what is that?
I'm sorry. I don't know what that was. This someone's car. I apologize. Well, there's an edit right there.
Oh, well,
yeah. But yeah,
it's okay. It's life, right?
Spiritually, I think, when you go through a transition, I'm thinking of like military. They take you, they shave your hair off, they completely transform you. And I feel like coming here has been, it's the hero's journey, isn't it? It's the death and the rebirth. Yeah. I don't even have an address. Where do you live? I don't know.
Under the sun.
Yeah, I live in the Andes. I live outside of El Batan, which is a little indigenous community. I live in Hawapacha, which means the place where I live in Quechua. Hawapacha means heaven on earth. Interestingly enough, but you have to. I think that, and so this is just a metaphor as well for any big transition in your life. Is that you have to. It is like a death. It's a letting go, and then this sort of floundering around, going like, just like when you're born into a new life. What am I doing? I don't know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm learning. I'm listening. I learned, like Colleen Benelli or the animal Reiki, you're listening.
Yeah.
Listening.
There would have to be a lot of potential for you there.
A lot of people need Reiki, and they're very open to it.
Are they?
Especially for the indigenous people. They're like, "Oh, you work with energy? Oh, of course you do." Because that's normal for them. That's part of their Quechua culture, with the yachak, with the shaman. Having negative energy. Instead they may like blow like a fermented drink on you, and maybe like purify you with leaves. But they completely understand that you have heavy energy that needs to be cleared. And so I've done a lot of sessions here. My plan with my business is I do distance sessions and I teach online, and that is more my business, but things are opening up to help. There's also domestic violence is a problem everywhere, isn't it? But there, I see so many places I can help. There are so many street dogs.
Oh,
And there are about 700 expats who live here. I'm not the only
oh,
one.
yeah.
And that's the kind of work that they do, is to help sterilize the dogs, make sure they're fed, get their vaccinations. So there's a lot of good I can do here, but I'm
Right.
mainly learning from them. I'm not here like, oh, I'm here the gringa savior to help make your life better. I'm really here to learn, because I think
Mm-hmm.
their life is already better in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
that's really interesting, Karen. So, um, have you had pushback being an American there, um, coming in from a whole different culture? Have you had any resistance?
No, because I'm struggling to speak. I speak Spanish. I say struggling, wait, because I do sometimes. I'll say goofy things like the word, they, instead of pelo for hair, they say cabello, and which is very close to caballo, which means horse. So I've said things like, "Look at my horse," or I mean, I've made really embarrassing mistakes trying to speak Spanish. But I think um, I've had some honest conversations with a couple of my indigenous friends. I said, "Is it good that we're here?" I said, part of the reason I couldn't afford to live in Arkansas anymore is because people from California were coming in and buying up the property, and the prices were going up, up, up. I said, "Are we doing that? Is, gentrification?
Mm.
Is it good to have gringos here, or are we a problem?" And he said, "Honestly, it's good for the economy. But most of the gringos here don't speak Spanish, but they're older. It's a lot of retirees, and it's hard to learn another language if you're, but I think you should at least try." Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
But there
Karen, I
hasn't been
mean,
pushback. I mean, and
yeah.
but, and I really don't understand this. I've had so many people sort of take me under their wing and help me. And then sometimes I think, well, my guides wouldn't have brought me here if I weren't supposed to be here. But it's just amazing the people that have helped me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, have you thought about doing other things there? Like,
Yes,
um,
people keep
mhm,
coming to visit me, and I think a big part of what I'm supposed to do here is to bring people here for retreats, I think.
mm,
And I may teach. One of my students has said, "Please, will you just do an extended Karuna class?" Next summer, I may do that,
mhm,
just to get started. But I'm feeling like you tell your students, when people start asking, that's a pretty good
mhm.
clue of what you're supposed to be doing. And people are asking me to come here and for a retreat, for a class, Reiki class. Christine Renee, who does the uh, Reiki Cafe University,
Mhm.
I talked with her, and she contacted me the next day. I did a podcast with her, and she said, "Were you serious about me coming to Ecuador? I could stay with you." I'm like, "I have a spare bedroom." And so she's coming in April. She bought her ticket. I think that when I said I was a bridge, what I'm figuring out, I think that I'm supposed to bring people here. The energy here is incredible.
Mhm.
It's just incredible. And I've been to some incredible places. I mean, Maui's got incredible energy. I've been in Stonehenge. I've been at Machu Picchu. I haven't been to Egypt yet. You have, but the energy here is just incredible, and I think it's healing and grounding for people. And I think that part of my purpose might be to provide an opportunity that's not terribly expensive
Mhm.
to come and just be here in this energy.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said about this exchange, of ideas. Here in the US, you mentioned the prices and the cost of living and things like that. Yeah, it's just gotten so intense, very expensive. And I'm wondering too, you had mentioned about the families there. Do they have
Yes.
multi-generational families? So who would typically live in a household there together?
Um, Usually the grandparents, the parents, and the children,
Yeah.
like many other cultures, and ancestors in the indigenous community are very important. We just had the Dia de los Muertos is different. They make a a drink that's really red out of blackberries called is a chicha morado kind of, and they make wawas de pan, or little like people made out of bread, and they go to the cemetery and they share this blood colored drink. It's just fruit juice and the bread. It's like a big picnic, but they invite all of their ancestors, so it's very ancestral. And I think that this being here in this environment is also helping me with my own ancestral healing, and connecting, because it's like every day for them. Like, yeah. And it's unusual. People keep, when my friend Jay, he built a house. I'm just renting, but he built a house here. And so everyone is asking, like Ruben, the taxi driver, he said, so you're going to live with Jay? And I'm like, no. He said, so Jay's going to live with you. I'm like, no. It's completely mind-boggling to them that we would live by ourselves.
Wow.
And it is kind of mind-boggling. Now that I'm here, I'm like, this is kind of weird I've been single for so long, but I live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, a condo by myself. And they're like, aren't you lonely? Or I can remember one of my indigenous friends, I dropped my wallet outside the bank, and somebody picked it up. But anyway, he ended up getting it back for me. But he said to me, I don't want you to ever feel that you are alone here, because you're not. And I was like, that's so weird. I mean, that's because I just moved here, and it's just, but they're very open that way. Like, oh, you're going to live here? We don't have any infrastructure. The government doesn't pay for anything. My friend Karen Harrison, she said, well, my boyfriend's a libertarian. Maybe I need to bring him here and show him how this would work, because we don't really have roads. The roads we have are maintained by the indigenous communities. About 3 or 4 times a year, they have what they call a minga. And everyone from the community comes together. If, like, I couldn't get out there and, like, place cobblestones on the road, but I can bring food. And so everyone in the community participates. And I asked Luis, I said, so what happens if they don't participate? He said, we cut off their water. Oh, my gosh. All right.
Wow.
The other thing is, not to paint the picture of these beautiful indigenous people, because they are beautiful indigenous people, but if they catch someone stealing, they burn them. I passed this billboard, and I asked Ruben, I said, did that just say thieves caught red-handed will be burned alive? He said, I see Karen. I'm like burn people? He said, I see Karen. And I'm like, they can do that? And he explained that, I guess it's like in the United States, the indigenous tribes, the Native Americans have their own laws within the United States on tribal land, on reservations. And so the indigenous communities have their own laws, and they're,
Okay.
I've been very honest. I said, what if they get the wrong person?
I know.
And he said, no, it has to be, they have to, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this person has been stealing, and they burn them like boogers. All right.
Now, okay. This is as earth-shattering to me as no post office. So, okay. So let me get this straight. So somebody's caught red-handed stealing, and so they burn them like to death?
Yes. Yeah.
And is there like a place set aside? This is the burn
place?
place?
Is there like a special burn place, or like, I don't know.
Okay.
And I haven't heard of anybody, except right after I moved here, I do remember. So we have a lot of Venezuelans. It's terrible in Venezuela. You'll see them, they're walking all the way through Colombia and coming to Ecuador and then going on to Peru too. But apparently there were some Venezuelans who were squatting in an empty house, and they had been stealing, and they set the house on fire.
Oh, wow. Now, okay. Another question, Karen. You said it's an indigenous law. So there you are in the land there in Ecuador. So would you fall under the same, I don't know if law is the right word, but what if you stole?
Resident.
Yeah. So if you stole something, they would have authority.
Yeah, I guess they could burn me alive. But let me tell
Yeah.
you what, I'm not going to be stealing from anybody. But
Not thinking about that at all, I bet.
no,
Yeah.
but I guess
Wow.
it's just, yeah, that was shocking to me. I think because because I've been learning about them, I'm learning their language. I'm like, oh, you live so close to the land, and aren't you beautiful? And it's not. Well, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just withholding judgment there, but I mean, in Saudi Arabia, they chop off your hand. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'd rather lose my hand than be burned alive. But anyway,
Wow.
but yeah,
So,
when we went to the Amazon, our guide, I remember he told Karen Harrison, he said, yeah, I was asking him about it too. And he said, yeah, he said, don't mess with the indigenous. I'm like, okay.
well, so there's different groups of people then. So if the indigenous
And they're in
people,
different indigenous tribes. There are about 7. No, I can't say tribes. They say communities. So I live with the Quechua, and then we went to the Amazon. The Quechua and the Amazon are a little different. Their language is a little different, and they cut their hair. They don't have the long braid. They cut their hair because it's hot.
yeah.
And then you have the headhunters. It starts with a W, for heaven's sakes. Warani, the Shuar. No, the Shuar. It's the Shuar. The Warani don't wear any clothes.
Oh,
So they're different.
wow.
There are different, and then the majority of the people in Ecuador are mestizo. They're mixed Spanish and indigenous. And
So
then
is there not a centralized, there's no centralized type government for like a prison or, I mean,
well, we do have a couple of prisons,
oh,
but the police are very different. Like the condo upstairs, nobody lives there, and it was robbed. I didn't hear a thing. They stole a refrigerator off the second floor, and I slept through it. Like, I guess I'm all right. And I said, "Aren't you going to call the police?" And she goes, "My landlady, she's Brazilian. She goes, why I would call the police?" She said, "What they are going to do fingerprints?" She said, "They don't have any equipment. They're not going to do anything." So I was like, "You didn't even call the police?" She said, "No." So, yeah, it's different. I lost my
yeah.
phone, and my taxi driver got it back with a police friend that I had to pay like $40. But the police, you have to kind of pay them.
Oh,
But as far as like, there's really no, there's no. It's completely different. There's just
yeah.
not a. You need
Wow.
to have friends. You need
What,
to have friends to do stuff.
yeah. You know, it is interesting to me because it sort of goes back to what you were saying about how they aren't alone, you know, how they all live together, how
Hmm.
they have communities and things like that. Because it would seem to me that that is very powerful
It
to
is. It's
have
just different.
connections there. You need to have
And so if you need
connections.
something, then you go to the community. If someone
Hmm.
steals something, then you go to the community and go, "Hey, did you, or um and it's weird being responsible for yourself, like carrying around all my x-rays and things. Like, you mean there's not a place where you leave this? The doctors don't, there's no nurse, there's, like, no.
Mm,
Go downstairs, get your MRI. Now bring it back upstairs. I mean,
yeah.
it's just it's that lack of government structures.
And how is the medical or
It actually ranks higher than
facilities?
the United States on the global index.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's
As
not too
far as
hard to do.
that was surprising, the the public hospitals here are not that great, but the
Yeah.
private ones are. And in Quito, you have some world class surgeons and doctors. My doctor, my cardiologist, was very. He listened. They take a lot of time with you.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Very thorough. They check things. I'm having to monitor my blood pressure for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when my Brazilian landlady who went with me, I said, "I think I need you to help make sure I'm understanding what he's saying. I don't want to, miss, like he said, like, you're going to die in Spanish or something," and I didn't understand it. And so she said, in Spanish, she tells him, like, "Oh, she's doing too many things. She went to the Amazon. She's climbing around. She went to baño. She's climbing up and down, and she needs to rest." And he looked at her and he said, "Fue feliz." She was happy. And I was like, oh, so he does understand quality of life.
Oh,
It's not
that's
just,
neat.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
to kind of bring this back to this entire process of moving here has been just part of that Reiki journey. I mean, and I've used Reiki all the way through. Like, am I doing the right thing? What's the next right step? Why am I here? Like when you ask me, what else are you going to do? I think I'm going to do retreats and do classes here. I just have to, and just live every day. Like, oh, well, that's different. How do I navigate that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? And it doesn't matter where you live. You still have a hero's adventure every day. Like, well, how do I navigate this? How do I navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and through it all, you've had the consistency of one companion, and that's Reiki.
Yeah.
Through all of these changes, all of the transitions, all of the learning. I mean, just the immense amount of learning that you have done is really incredible, I think. Way more than had you stayed all the way back then. Can you even imagine what you'd be doing now if you stayed and hadn't taken the leap?
Mm-mm. And that's the thing. So if anybody's listening, thinking about, is it time for me to do this, or is it time to make a change, or is it time, if you're feeling that and you're asking it, it probably is. So you just ask, so then what? What's the next step? Is it this? And ask for signs, and you'll get them.
Yeah. Yeah, signs. That's a great topic too, isn't it, Karen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you for being here with me and just reconnecting. I hadn't talked to you in quite some time. And if our audience wants to get in touch with you, learn more, read your blog, for example, as well about your adventures over there, how can they best connect with you, Karen?
My new blog is Karina, Karina, and Dina, ANDINA.blog. And I'm trying to sort of just document this journey in the hopes that what I'm learning as I go along might be applicable to other people's lives as they go along their own journey. So, and I would love to have anybody in a class if they feel drawn to that. And I still am thinking of expanding the coaching, doing the coaching, maybe more life coaching. But first I feel like I need to figure it out. Like, okay, this is what I got so far.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. It's been an amazing journey that you've had, Karen. Again, thanks so much for coming all the way across the world
Thank you for inviting me.
All the way across the world through technology. Yeah, that's how we do it today. So thanks a lot, Karen.
Thanks.
And from myself and the team here at Beyond the Reiki Gateway, we'd like to say thank you to our listeners for all of your support, including leaving great reviews, becoming BTRG insiders, and sharing this show with your friends and family. Drop us a line at info@beyondthereikigateway.com anytime. Tell us what's on your mind and take great care. Until next time. Thank you again for joining me. Please check the description underneath this video to learn more, connect with us, and get some important information about your listening experience. Wishing you all the best until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.